So if you have yet to hear, Taizai was #1 in sales for the first half of 2015. Woo! Okay, so the Taizai greatness proves why its greatness beats all the contenders of the year. Even beats Tokyo Ghoul and One Piece and Attack on Titan. Yo! Okay, so I already made a video on that, so I don't think I need to actually go into it in this video. I just wanted to mention that if you've missed that video. So, Taizai. Chapter... I guess this really does have a chapter. This is, I guess, Diane's side story part 2 conclusion. That's a proper way to title this chapter. So, with this chapter, we finally get clarification of how Diane got her sin. We finally figured out how she got her sin, why she became a part of the 7 deadly sins, what happened to Matrona, and the outcome of her past. So, a lot of shocking revelations in this chapter I did not expect. Really, I didn't. Because Matrona is dead, from what we can see. Matrona just died in this chapter, and I always assumed Matrona was still alive. I always thought Matrona was alive, and judging by the course and the outcome of last week's chapter, I thought, you know, just Diane was going to run away, but no, it wasn't that. The actual outcome of what happens to Matrona is what leads Diane to being part of the 7 deadly sins. She was framed. So, in the act of what happened to Diane, what we can look at is she's gained her sin. Like, her greatest sin is her compassion. That's kind of what you can pull out of this. See, each individual sin, they have certain thing that represents them for how they got their sin. You know how, like, Bon or Meliodas to, you know, Galther, and different people have their own different sins or different actions they cause to get their individual sin. But Diane, she's different. She got her sin from too much compassion. And so she got turned into a 7 deadly sin and framed for the murder of Matrona. I'm kind of conflicted right here because, see, I'm not a big fan of Matrona. I made that quite clear in last week's chapter. She was badass. I liked her design. She was badass. She was very strong. She was really cool. And yes, she probably helped, you know, Diane level up her skills and fighting skills to be able to fight better on the battlefield. I am thankful for that. But I didn't really get to know Matrona for quite a long time, and so personally to me, I was more sad for Diane and her outcome of what happened with the death of Matrona than the death of Matrona. Hopefully you all understand what I'm getting at. So, Diane, she has to deal with the loss of someone that has raised her like a mother in this chapter, and what's even more that, like, rubs the wound even worse is that she gets betrayed and framed for the death of the person that raised her like a daughter. So it was sad. It was a sad way to see this, you know, side story conclude, because it makes you have a different perspective on Diane and what she went through. I mean, to see now that Diane Best Girl, she got framed for what happened, it kind of pisses me off. It really does, because I don't know how to take that, because that would mean that majority of people that look at Diane and for her being a sinner, they look at it as if she committed a grave act, a murder, against the Earth's Fang, Matrona. And to see she didn't even do that, it's kind of fucked up, because, I mean, let's look at this. Each individual sin has their own different side or take to the sin they represent. I mean, look at Bon, okay? He stole the Fountain of Youth because he had to be given it. Like, he was offered it by the person that was actually protecting it. So, to see that, it gives you new perspectives on how each individual sin got their sin. And Diane, we got a new perspective on that. But it's like she didn't even get her sin, though. It's like she didn't even really do it. Like, her only sin is her compassion. And at the end of the day, she didn't really have any envy or jealousy towards Matrona. She really didn't. So, yeah, I mean, the chapter, a very bittersweet end to this side story. It just gives you a whole new grand scope of things. Since now we do know that Diane is charging towards the Giant's Village, and we saw that at the end, like 2 chapters ago, like 2.5 weeks ago, it's obvious that Diane's probably forgotten Matrona's death. She's probably forgotten about that. And so for her to be running to the Giant's, you know, village, that's not good. That's not good at all, because let me explain. Diane's name has been rubbed through the mud that she killed Matrona. what is the Giants going to do when they discover that Matrona died by the hands of Diane? Like, you know, they probably have heard that news. Diane was sentenced to prison and lockup because she killed Matrona. And the Giants at the village probably heard about that. And so what are they going to do to Diane when they see her, the person that killed their leader? Very obvious. Very, very, very obvious. So, Diane's in trouble. A lot of trouble right now, because nobody's going to believe a person that supposedly has been framed for murder. No one is. I like this chapter quite a bit. I really do. I love these side stories. I really do. I love how Nakaba really goes in and does these side stories for each individual characters. Like, it really just shows you how much the mangaka of this series really cares about his characters in writing, because he gives each individual sin their own side story. Like, almost every sin now has had their own individual side story. We just need a Merlin, a Galther, and I guess, let's see, we already got enough of King. We need more Meliodas, too. Meliodas is probably going to be saved for last, most likely. I sense that being saved for last. We need a Galther, and we need a Merlin one. I really want one of those. That would be really nice to have in the near future. And then Escanor, I guess we need to find out more about Escanor, too. So, there we go. So, about that's the chapter of Taizai. It just concludes this side story with a heart-touching, bittersweet ending, and seeing how Diane got her sin. So, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this week's chapter? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.